So my name is Rachel Fowler, and I run a zero-waste fashion company called Tonlé. It's based out of Cambodia, and we produce there, and we sell all over the world. So I first started my company about 8 years ago in Cambodia, and I started working with a small group of artisans first, and it grew up from there. And now we produce in Cambodia, and we sell to about 25 different countries around the world. And we make casual, comfortable apparel for women as a zero-waste company. So we use remnant materials from garment factories in Cambodia, and we recycle every single scrap of fabric through a really unique process where we take all the tiny scraps and break them down and actually weave them into new fabrics. Well, while I was in Cambodia, I knew that I needed a company to be sustainable as well as socially responsible, because I feel like sustainability goes hand in hand with human rights. And so I was looking for eco-friendly materials in Cambodia, and I came across the problem with waste in the garment industry and discovered how big of an issue it was, that there was just so much being wasted there in Cambodia. One of Cambodia's main industries is garment manufacturing, so there was particularly a lot of waste there, especially because they're known for low-cost manufacturing. So I felt that that was the most sustainable option that we could pursue. And so I started sourcing waste materials, and then through the process of creating products out of waste, we found that we still had some scraps of our own production left. And so I just kept creating new designs to try to figure out how to use more and more of those scraps until we were able to eliminate all of the waste from our production cycle. It's more of an art paper, it's really textural, so it's quite because of the way that we recycle the fabric, it's not all one type of textile, so you can't completely break it down into the tiniest shreds. So it is quite thick and textured, but we can use it for greeting cards and notebooks. And I had that idea because the small scraps that we had left over were so tiny that we really couldn't do anything else with them. And I had read some research about making paper out of scraps, and I thought that would be a good solution to use those scraps for. We use really small, basically because usually you need it to all be natural fibers, so it's easier to break down, but because our paper is really thick and we just let it be really chunky and kind of textural, then it doesn't break down quite as well as natural fibers do, but it also works if it's a mixed fiber.
Okay.
Sustainable fashion is really important because I think the clothing industry is not going anywhere. We're not going to be eliminating the need for clothing anytime soon. So it's really important that we change that industry because there's so many things going wrong with the fashion industry, and it's a huge contributor to climate change and global warming, as well as pollutants in the air and the lakes and rivers. It takes up a huge percentage of our fresh water that's available in the world, and it's extremely exploitative of workers. So I think it's something that really needs addressing, and small sustainable fashion brands, although they make up a really small portion of the global economy for fashion, I think that they have a big role to play as well, because they're the ones who are kind of getting the word out there that things can be done differently. And I think that's really important. I think we make it a big part of our marketing. We make it a part of our discussions when we're talking with customers. We have included a lot of information for our customers on our website. We've created videos. We link up with other people who are doing similar projects. So I think, we do a lot to discuss that, although we don't want to try to, make the customers feel bad, but we want them to know about, what the industry is like and what they can do about it. So basically, we buy these remnant materials mostly from remnant markets and sometimes directly from factories as well that are left over from larger scale garment factories production. And we take those remnants and we first cut larger pieces. Some of the scraps of fabric can actually be quite long, like 10 meters at a time. And we take those scraps and we actually then cut the larger pieces first, whether that be a t-shirt or a dress. And then the small scraps from that actually get cut down into strips, which we make into yarn and weave into new fabrics. And those are some of our most special pieces. Our hand-woven pieces are really unique. And then some of the scraps can also be knit into scarves and ponchos and sweatshirts. And then this leftover scraps from that, as you mentioned before, are actually made into paper.
Okay.
Sort of a mixture of both. We can't just take organic fabrics because we don't know exactly what we're getting. But we try to find as much natural fiber as possible. So we try to work with cottons and sometimes rayon and linen. But it's not possible to tell with 100% certainty because we get these big bulk stocks of fabric scraps, and they don't know 100% what it is. You can test it with burn testing and things like that, but it's not 100% foolproof. I mean, I think people have to want to be educated, and they have to want to, they have to want to learn, and they have to want to see it, because I think that there's a lot of information out there, but I think that we need a lot of different, people learn in different ways, and I think that they come around to these conclusions in their own, and a lot of in their own time, in their own different time periods. I think different things work with some people. Some people are really moved by shocking campaigns, where they see 1,000 people died in a garment factory fire or a garment factory collapse. That really moves a lot of people to want to change their behavior. But some people are not as moved by that, but they will be motivated much more by seeing more beautiful, sustainable options that they can buy that seem, like what they would usually like to purchase when you make it easier for them. So I think people come on their own time, and there's lots of different approaches that work. I think that the world cannot afford to continue on this trajectory that we're on. And we will have to change because the climate and the planet cannot keep up with this trajectory. So I do think that larger companies are going to be forced to make changes over time. And hopefully, in the future, we'll see the same standards that ethical fashion brands are upholding, that larger companies will have to uphold those as well. I think that it is challenging not only to design a zero waste garment, but I think it's challenging to run a business around that model, because trying to make money and trying to be profitable at the same time of having a triple bottom line company where you're considering the environment and social responsibility and trying to make money at the same time, it's a really hard thing to balance. I mean, there's a reason that a lot of companies do practice these exploitative practices, because they're making a lot of money, and I think that there's a reason for that. So that's the challenge, I think, is balancing all that with also being a sustainable company and being able to make ends meet and be successful. And sometimes it's we go through ups and downs with that, and it never really gets easy, but it's always worth the challenge.